Three, two, one.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am One Man, back for another commentary video. And today I thought I'd cover an old issue that I often watch over. Like, I watch my buddy Unknown Otaku, who made a video called Trap is Not a Translator. And I don't agree with the structure of the arguments that Unknown makes, but I do agree with the assertion. And it's going to be a long one, but trap as a term is related to a few things. It's a abbreviation of entrapment, which is a tactic that many organizations have used in the past, which is related to the term known as honeypot. For those who don't know what the honeypot is, it's where people of different varieties try to entrap a person to basically be a sting operation. Oftentimes involving either politicians or prostitution rings of the sort of the like. But the problem is that the whole trap aspect is necessary. And it's a necessary part of the institution. It's an infiltration espionage technique. For example, if a politician is a straight man, they'll send a straight woman, generally a natally born woman, rather than a gender-identified woman, to go and entrap a politician to get dirts and secrets on him. Now, not only that, but there's also various different people in that same profession of different sexual persuasions, of different gender identities used to coerce a result. Oftentimes women, or, gay men, or straight men, or whatever, are used to stop prostitution rings. They try to pick up high-profile targets to arrest in these prostitution rings. Why am I talking about a prostitution ring that could apply to literally everyone? Well, it's one of the few examples of the concept of trap being a translator is objectively wrong in a multitude of ways. Because if we're going by the term entrapment, which is another term used for the tactic known as the honeypot, it can't objectively, and I'm only going to use this only a couple of times, be a trap slur. It can't be a trap exclusive slur. It can't be exclusive to trans folk. It can't be exclusive to really anyone of any sexual persuasion or gender identity. Because the fact of the matter is police have used all kinds of people to use as sting operations or to entrap politicians for either, hitting them with criminal charges or finding out foreign techniques or information. Oftentimes, sex is the oldest currency in a capitalist society, and it's well recognized even to this day. For entrapment / honeypot tactics are still in usage today. So, if we were to go by what the term trap is applied to, it can at least be applied to 3 different groups. It can be used to describe trans folk who are identified as female, but ultimately are born with the biological parts of a female, biological parts of a male. It can be used as a slur against, straight women. So it'd also be, misogynist on top of that. It can also be homophobic and misandrist. It covers so many groups of people at the same time, even with the visual examples you see with, Astolfo or Well, actually, I'm not even going to get into Astolfo. He's one of the poorest examples you can go with, because he qualifies as like a fuck ton of other things. You can call him trapped, trans, gender bend. Like, it. You have to understand with Astolfo, using hero characters as any sort of standard is utterly ridiculous when you find that 3 different male characters are reincarnated as females: Arthur, Mordred, and Nero, for immediate examples. Using examples like Hime Arikara or Hideyoshi, Hideri, and, well, Lily from, which is the person who is a point of contention from Zombieland Saga. Zombieland Saga's, concept of Lily is a bit intriguing, because people could make a reasonable concept or assertion that Lily is trans. But the problem is that you need to forsake 90% of the context and payoff in order for that to function. You have to only look at a singular scene, or a singular 1 or 2 scenes, to come to that assertion, not the entirety of episode 8. See, the entire purpose of Masao becoming Lily is not that he was, gender identified from the start. If anything, Masao / Lily was a persona identified and adopted to keep Lily in the general business of being an idol on TV. Because it made, Masao / Lily's father happy, because their father really, really loved television. But here's where the beautiful part comes in. Lily loves her dad, his dad, whatever you want to call Lily, very, very much. The whole dynamic was about the father and his child. That was the beauty of the segment, not the trans identity thing that, let's face it, trans folk project on. Not even the song theme was about Lily's identity. You had to ignore the ending song, which is literally just a wonderful, beautiful theme of "I'll be all right, Father. You can rest easy now. Don't feel guilty for my death," because that was ultimately what crushed Lily / Masao's father in the first place. That the child that he loved so much died, and he took it real hard. He changed his profession. He was far more moody and closed off. But seeing Lily be an idol one more time, the beauty of that scene was the love between a parent and a child. In order to care about the trans identity of Lily, you had to be vapid, vain, and projecting. Which, to be fair, I'm not going to blame the trans community for that. It's pretty typical of the average citizen these days to project onto characters. It's perfectly reasonable, I guess. I mean, I wouldn't, project onto a status of something I couldn't help, but rather things I could identify with, like morality, or, general situation. But I'll get to that in another video. About diversity for the sake of diversity is bad. That's the title I'm going to be with here, with the following video. Here's the thing. I respect the fact that people who are trans have gone through all these problems. I respect that they have survived that. But here's the problem that really sets in for me. People who are trans are saying Lily is trans based off of the word of their oppressors. Have you ever noticed it's strange? That it's really strange that they think that trap means trans, that trap is a trans slur based off of its usage. Because one of the prime arguments from the trans community is usage. That people use the term trap against trans folk. Now, I'm not denying that it causes damage to the trans folk. There's nothing wrong with that. But here's where the problem comes in. The problem is that they assert something that is actually more damaging to trans folk than the term trap, because they're validating those who used it. And it's not their fault. It's a typical social, societal assumption that just because someone says it, it is all of a sudden the correct usage. Don't you find it odd that people who who say trap is a trans slur are saying the same argument or same usage as the people who called them that in the first place? Don't you find it suspicious when, despite all the information surrounding them, that they don't call into question the validity of the people who use it? I mean, think about it. Why on earth are you saying something is a trans slur when it's originated from their oppressor? Let's face the facts. People who say things to you are generally going to lie to you. They're going to say you're one thing and then prove that you're not. For example, I've been called the liar in a multitude of times in the past. And for those who don't understand why I'm bringing this up, it's one of the biggest things I don't like being called. Because I've spent my entire life, or rather adult life, avoiding lies. But I find it odd that the trans community does not consider for even half a second that the people who use this slur against you are wrong. They try to say a lived-in argument experience as a form of objective reasoning, but it's not, because, again, it relies on the assumption that the person who uses that slur uses it correctly. I would implore the trans community to reconsider the phrase trap is a slur. Just because someone uses it as such does not mean it is the correct definition. I would implore you to try and not spew garbage rhetoric, which is more hurtful than people saying trap is not a trans slur. Because, again, people, shocker, can tell you wrong information. And I find it funny that these people will also claim to and profess to hate the alt-right, but then use alt-right buzzwords to define them. It's clear that the people who use trap as a trans slur have some level of connection to alt-right groups. And honestly, why are you feeding into it? Do people understand that the easiest solution to this is to not validate the people who use this? This is coming from, by the way, a professional tactician, a professional politician, a political candidate. So, I understand the ins and outs of political talking points. I know the ins and outs of English rhetoric, because I spent my entire life, if we want to go with subjective lived-in arguments, my entire life being into politics, being into academics, history, writing, reading, certain sciences, all of these things. But because someone's trans, they have more validity than somebody who actually has knowledge of academic topics. This is not a response video. This is just me talking about and probably whinging about the fact that Lily's story was touching, but not for the reasons that the trans community thinks. You have every right to love who you love and be who you wish to be, as long as you are not hurting other people. And for the most part, trans folk are not hurting other people. But I do gotta call one thing into question. Now, this is a hypothetical scenario. This is not actually casting blame. This is not saying your experiences are wrong. This is a hypothetical scenario. Sorry, I had to explain it twice. What if What if some people are being dishonest? I mean, that's kind of the trend here. Maybe I'm the weirdo for, like, immediately assuming someone is wrong the moment they say something. Maybe I'm a weirdo for immediately doubting the word of another person. That, if I don't personally know them, I know that they're probably going to be lying. But, hear me out. What if the trans community is misrepresented by people who, in fact, may entrap people? This is not even a question at this point. I'm sure there are a few trans folk who have been used in a honeypot situation. Because unfortunately, trans folk are fetishized, which, from what I hear, is personally damaging. So if that is such the case, if trans folk are indeed fetishized, does it not stand the reason that those who enact honeypot scenarios would target certain groups of people who actually have that fetish? Don't you think they would use entrapment methods, and trans folk sign off on that method? Now, this is not justifying what they say as correct. I'm posing in a hypothetical scenario because I don't want trans folk to automatically be voided of blame. The whole point of a trap character is entrapment. It's not to say that trans folk are or aren't engaging in such seditious acts. It is to say that trans characters in certain trap characters in certain scenarios are used to entrap people. There are politicians out there who probably do like the whole femboy thing. Hell, I'm a guy who's a fan of tomboys. The shorter the shorts and the tighter the shorts, the fucking larger my rod becomes. My rod becomes full fucking mast if I see a tomboy in a sexy fucking short thing hugging her hips. Okay, I need to stop. I need to fucking stop with the tomboy stuff. Anywho, point being, back on topic. The fact of the matter is, trap characters are designed not for trans folk. Typically, trans folk are more represented in a different genre, without actually being a direct correlation. The general genre, ladies and gentlemen, is called gender bend, and, well, if you ask me, I'm a bit of an expert at that in myself, considering one of my best series I've ever written is a gender bend series. And it's called the Omen series. The original concept was Omen in the Sky, and it has had different names over the years. But the franchise is called the Omen franchise, and I'll probably link my novel series in the video description, because the cards and end cards don't allow my website, called Smashwords. Anywho, gender bend is kind of a roundabout way of expressing topics that affect females and trans women. Or sometimes, in a very rare case, the opposite, men and trans men. But I don't know very many people who would write gender bend from the perspective of, males and trans males. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong on that. Or if, correct me if there are. Because, if they're good, I'll read whatever genre it is. I've seen stuff from every genre you can possibly imagine. Except for maybe, stuff revolving around that one icky, fucking hentai tag called, scat. I will never read stuff related to scat or, infantile stuff at all. I've seen those tags on hentai, which we all go to hentai. But, I will, if I ever see that in any, of the listed, whatever, I avoid that shit like the plague. I just realized I created a pun. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh. That I was just laughing at my own, self-cringe. Back on topic. The fact of the matter is, trap characters are here to stay, and they're more appropriately and correctly used to talk about femboys, not trans folk. Ultimately, I know it's ironic for me to say this. Well, not really ironic, but expected for me to say this. But let's face it, using the trap as a trans slur is it's just like every other Western localization. Utterly fucking terrible. And that's the truth of the matter. You guys fell for a bad localization. Calling, anybody who uses trap as a trans slur is inadvertently supporting, Dragon Maid being about fighting the patriarchy. It's the same fucking energy. What should you glean from this commentary video? Simple. People who use trap as a trans slur are wrong to do so. Many people who are trans are people who say straight up to their partner of interest that they are trans, and whether or not they are interested in them, despite. If they are into that person despite their trans status, in my opinion, that's a win for the couple. I just want people to know that everybody has... I like the old saying my aunt has. There is someone out there for everyone. And isn't that life's greatest journey when it comes to love? Finding the person who is right for you. And sometimes that's the brutal reality of love, and especially with complicated things like, trans issues. I don't want this to be about the general Ben Shapiro facts over feelings. I want this video to be a balanced commentary with some humor added in because I'm fucking cringeworthy. And I'm pretty sure at this point I'm a goddamn lolcow. So, whatever on that. And I know a lot of you probably come on to here to laugh at me. But if I am to ever impart a message to trans folk, is that you are great who you are. Do not let people who use trap as a trans slur ever keep you from respecting your identity. But please, for the life of me, if somebody uses trap as a trans slur, laugh in their fucking face because of how much of a fucking idiot those people are. Have a nice day, and I'll see you next time. Okay, that was awesome. S? Okay, I'll take it.